Hello, everyone, and welcome to our early comics review show. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where every Monday, after all the comics have landed and all the dust is cleared and we've bagged and boarded them, we divide them up, we read them, and we do this spoiler light show where we tell you about all the first appearances, all the major collectability reasons to get the books. But then, even more so, we go into what are they about? What's going on in these comics? Especially the issue number ones. Like, why might you want to read them? Which ones are going to connect best with you? So I think we have a pretty medium week,
Yeah.
about normal, about like the last 2 weeks. These are the first batch we're going over, but many off to the side, including all their variants and incentives. So just stay tuned, and here we go.
Yeah, starting with a big one this week. This is Batman One Bad Day, the Riddler. So this is a one-shot of many one-shots. You've probably seen ads for this. They're even in the books this week. There's even ads for it in its own book.
Yeah, it's like two and a half page ads
Yes.
for this like series of one shots.
So this is actually going to be going on, I think, through like pretty far into next year because there's quite a few of these one shots, all by different creative teams. And this one is spotlighting the Riddler by Tom King and Mitch Gerards. So your classic team of Mr. Miracle and Strange Adventures and all of the come together to tell this story about which. Before I get into what it's about, going into it, I didn't hardly know anything about this. Calling it One Bad Day or yeah, that's the Joker thing.
Yeah, that phrase tells you a lot.
Yeah. So my idea of this was, let's I guess we're gonna see what Riddler's One Bad Day was. Um, so it starts off. It's very interesting. It's a first person view of this guy going to work, talking on the phone. This is very Tom King. The dialogue and everything is very realistic. You can hear them, in your head talking like this. Uh, he's getting ready to go home, and when he goes out of his office building, the next page cuts to security cameras, and you see that he just in the middle of the sidewalk, the Riddler walks up and shoots him, and then to the camera holds up a little bat symbol and walks off. And they're like, none of this makes sense. This is not Riddler's MO. He's not about, just this kind of violence. There's always a riddle or something around it. So partly this is about why did he do this? Like, what's the purpose of basically breaking from his norm, his kind of shtick to do this crime? But he's immediately caught, which I think is interesting. And he sits across from Commissioner Gordon, and interesting enough, brings up Joker. So Joker told Riddler about his one bad day. And so Riddler, this does relate quite a bit to Killing Joke. There's a lot of Killing Joke. Riddler talks to Gordon about what happened with Barbara, all of that. So that kind of spins a very interesting twist on this. Now, this is also interspersed with Nigma. You'll find out is that his real name as a kid and why he hated riddles. Like, so much so they caused him to cry. Even it's very dark how much he hates riddles, and you'll find out why. And just that is, I believe, the one bad day thing is you see what caused him to become what he became. So that is part of this, and I'm guessing it'll be part of all of these books. But it's definitely a Riddler origin story, and then because it's Tom King, it's wrapped up in this big mystery of why the Riddler did what he did, and how Batman's involved in it as well. So this is a very novella feeling story. It's heavy on the dialogue, heavy on the exposition, but not in a bad way. It's very interesting, but this will take you a while to read. So this is a $7.99 one shot that I'm not sure if these are going to connect at all or what, but at least for this one, it seems just a standalone Batman villain story. Then we have some really cool variants. We have Jim Lee. We have Kevin Coley. And then we have a 1 in 25 Marquez variant. We do not have priced yet, but will be available for our customers.
Yeah, see, I needed your review too because I've read about this and I still didn't know what to expect. Like when you say one bad day, I had my expectations, but that sounds like a little bit what I expected, but different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. Like even I'm happy for this review. So.
Yeah. I would say the strongest part of this is the flashback parts, but I don't want to give that away because it is very integral to the story when he was a kid, where he was, a lot to do with his father, a lot to do with his school. But I'll let people read that because it's pretty crazy.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, which has a first appearance. You see her right there on the cover, front and center. There is a new Spider UK. So there already was a Spider UK. Mm-hmm. This is a different one, and that does get addressed. We actually see a meeting of those two in a little bit of a comical last story. That's also an important story. So this Edge of the Spider-Verse series is showing you where all the characters are coming from, all the different universes, before they start the full-on Spider-Verse thing. Now, my favorite part of this was I didn't think they were going to get into the meat of who's the villain or what the threat is, but there are 2 stories in this one that actually do get into that. But I'm going to quickly just go over what all the stories are. So the first story is the Spider-Gwen story. It's her back in her universe. She's with her band. They're trying to play a show. And guess what? Mysterio shows up. That's never good. So that's the first story. You know, more to it than that. I'm just doing a very quick overview. The second story is the Spider UK story, her name is Zarina. And she is Muslim, and she's been fasting for Ramadan when a big threat occurs that she has to go out for. So imagine, like, you've been fasting, it's almost the end time of your fast, and you got to go out and do superhero stuff. So that's pretty interesting. I would also like to say about this new Spider UK, she has a new spider power we've never seen before. So that's not her only power. She has a lot of the classic ones, but she has one additional power that, that's the spoiler alert part of the show. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then the third story follows Shathira. Now, I don't know if all of you know who Shathira is. She is an old Spider-Man villain, sort of like Hornet Bee based. And this goes way back to the origins of the Web of Fate. So this is set back in those times where we meet another new character. And I don't know if this character's coming back, but she does something really important. It's like a younger sister of Shathira. Her name is Neith. And she's the one who actually comes up with the Web of Fate. Like Shathira is doing this whole other thing, and her little niece comes up and is like, no, you should do it like this. And the other gods of this time agree, and that's kind of how it starts. So that story is really interesting. That's one of the 2 that is going to figure into what the whole Spider-Verse plot is. The 4th story is a 1-page story set in the mini Spider-Verse with Mini Spider. And all the characters are sort of meeting there, and that's where you get to see the meeting between the new and the old Spider UK. So it's just a 1-page story, but funny enough, it kind of spells out, hey, here's what the threat is, and here's what's about to happen in this 1-page story that looks like it doesn't matter, but I got more from that than a lot of them. So a lot going on in Edge of the Spider-Verse number 2. I mean, that was my abbreviated spoiler-free version. Here is the Sousa variant with the new Spider UK on it. And then we have a 1 in 10 Thorogood design variant that we're selling to our customers for $10. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of people coming in for this issue.
Yeah.
Just like the last one.
Yeah, always Edge of the Spider-Verse stuff. Spider-Verse stuff
new
in
Spider
general
characters,
is big. Okay, so it's here. Avengers 1 million BC.
There's a long wait.
It's a long way. 1 million years you've been waiting for this. So this is, of course, by Jason Aaron, who has kind of created this idea of Avengers 1 million BC. And we've seen them quite a bit during his run of Avengers. So you have Odin, you have Starbrand, you have Phoenix, you have Agamotto, you have Black Panther, but they're all like the OG versions of them.
And the Ghost Rider
Yep.
rides like the mammoth.
Yes, so you have the prototype essentially for all the characters to come. But this picks up kind of, I believe, after most of the stories he's told with them, because we've already seen that Phoenix, this version of the Phoenix is just Phoenix. It is the being of the Phoenix, and Odin have had somewhat of a rocky relationship, but Odin is very much like his future son, and he's very brash. He does stuff without thinking, and in this, he's also very like no nonsense. War is war, death is death. Well, we find out that Black Panther has died in a big war, and he doesn't grieve. He just goes right along with it. And Phoenix can't believe that he doesn't even kind of memorialize or whatever Black Panther. So she's really upset with him. You do get some origins of Wakanda in this, which is really cool. But this whole book is kind of about that relationship between Odin and Phoenix leading to the birth of Thor, because that's what this has been about, what they've been teasing, that you're going to get the true origin of Thor. And that is true. In this, you do see who is Thor's real mother. So this all goes until Phoenix wants to leave Earth. You know, that it very much setting up the Phoenix Force and what it later becomes. She wants to leave Earth, but she doesn't want to leave it unguarded, because she's very compassionate about the people of Earth. So she says there needs to be born a god who can defend the Earth. But she, to do it, she might have to end up using Odin to be the father of it. You'll have to see how it plays out. It does explain what the Phoenix relationship to Thor is, what Odin's relationship to Thor and Phoenix is. It's a very interesting, this is just a one-shot, so it ends very much with the scene has been set. I don't even know if we're going to revisit these characters, because at the end of this, it kind of seems like all of the things have are now on their path to where they're going to end up. But very interesting one-shot issue. Very cool to see. It may tease a next version of Avengers 1 million BC, because there are some name drops of some new kind of hero characters that have emerged. Not even their names, but kind of where they're from and what they do. So that's something to keep in mind. This is a very good issue. I think it's fine even if you haven't been reading the main Avengers book, because it's kind of a self-contained thing, and it describes it all in the beginning. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were doing this one shot just to see how the interest is, because Jason Aaron may have in his back pocket an ongoing.
I would love that, because I think they've set up a really interesting.
As much work as he's put into the Avengers 1 million BC.
So we also have this awesome Stegman homage cover. And we have this Harley variant, this 1 in 25 Harley variant that we're selling to our customers for $25.
Okay, so I read Flash number 785, which is a Dark Crisis tie-in. This book is really interesting because it is an important tie-in. It's one, if you're reading Dark Crisis, I think this would be a really good one to read before issue 4, which is not out this week. Just in case you read your comics a few weeks, back, as a lot of people do. You want to read this before Dark Crisis 4, but at the same time, it has enough of a standalone story that if you're not reading Dark Crisis, you're still going to like it. I don't know how they're able to pull this off in Flash, but I promise you they do. And so let me tell you a little more of how that works exactly. So the whole Flash family and team, they are going into the multiverses to find whatever planet Barry Allen is on. You know, they know that his mind has been taken over. You know, if you've been reading Dark Crisis, you know Pariah is kind of behind things, and he has put the Justice League on their own little planets where they're in these perfect worlds. Well, they're going through the multiverse to find that world. They have a way to find all the Barry Allens, and they're checking them all out. We saw last issue that one of the teams is in a Mad Max style world, which I just love. There's more of that in this one. But the main one that we follow is where where Wally's kids end up. And they're in a world with a character called Night Flash, who is very scary. He's a bit like a cross between Flash and Batman. I know that was done with Dark Knight's Death Metal, but different. More Flash leaning, but sort of scary. So if you read this one, you get to see what this character is about in his world. What are his motives? Is he good? Is he bad? That's a lot of the crux of this tale. But what I will tell you is how it ties into Dark Crisis is you're going to find out what happens to Barry, and what goes on in this is going to send him on a path that's going to come up pretty big in Dark Crisis number 4, I assume. I haven't read that yet, but I assume it's going to matter a lot, and people who don't read this are going to probably get caught up in the book, but want to go, how is he the one that is in this position? So anyway, another good issue of Flash, but I just wanted to warn everybody, don't read it before Dark Crisis 4, even though that's not out quite yet. We have a variant. We've got the Combatus variant right here. I guess the only other thing I'll mention is, Linda West also has displayed she has Speed Force powers. And if you think that it's, she's going to stand by while her kids are off on a mission, no. So Linda West has a good part in this story.
I'm waiting for her to get a suit, get some kind of title and all of that.
Flash's daughter has been trying to come up with her name.
Yeah.
And it's funny watching the steps of that in this issue too.
Okay, next up for me is one that I will only briefly speak on because this is a dense book. This is 20th Century Men from Image Comics. This is written by Denzin Camp, and art is by S. Morian. And the really standout thing of this is the art. Every few pages, the art style changes from being very painterly to black and white, very pen and ink. It kind of goes all over the place. And this is a very dense political mixing of history and comic books into a surreal alternate history genre type book. So it uses a lot of real world places and events, but mixes it with what if the president had superpowers? What if we've, as you see on the cover, created like mech suits, that kind of thing. But this is very dense in dialogue, in setting, in terminology, all of that. So if you like your really heavy sci-fi, this is definitely that. If you're looking for a book that you're going to have to sit down and probably take a while to read, it's not like flashy action. There is some action, but this is mostly characters, exploring different characters in different parts of the world and how they're dealing with events and all of that. So I would be remiss if I tried to explain everything. It would take a big backstory and everything. But
so it sounds like it's for somebody who's a comic nerd, a history nerd, and maybe even a literature nerd.
Yes.
Like the collision of those three.
Yes, with a good healthy dose of government legislation nerd.
Okay.
So, and then we have just this one variant for it as well. A really cool design for the suit of armor. It's very like gorilla-like.
All right, so another indie book that I got to read is Heart Eyes #1. So let's take a look at this cover. We have a girl who's sort of peacefully holding a flower while sitting on a tentacled monster. If you like this art, what I have to say is the interior art's done by the same person, and the interior art looks just like this. I think this represents the interior art very well. So this is set in a post-apocalyptic world, and no, it wasn't a nuclear bomb. No, it wasn't aliens. It was good old-fashioned monsters. Monsters ended society.
Classic.
But these monsters eat sanity. Now you get to see some of that, but I still have questions on
Mhm.
how that works even after the first issue. So there's a 17-year-old boy named Rico who is a survivor, and him and his tribe live in this place where they're trying to avoid the monsters. Well, one day he comes upon a girl about his age, the girl on the cover. Her name is Lupe, and she is walking by herself, just like everything's fine. So he pulls her into the tribe and is just like, "What are you doing? You can't be out here. Like the monsters are going to get you." But she seems very unafraid. She claims that the monsters are basically gone, that it's all done, that they could come out. But is that the case, or is there more? That's the most I can tell you for
Hmm.
that. So, yeah, pretty good first issue if you like your post apocalyptic monster stories, who to trust, who not to trust. Even by the end of the first issue, I'm still not exactly sure. And as I said, I think the art is represented really well on the cover.
I thought this was also supposed to be kind of like a romance or something. So
There's a little romance in it,
okay,
but that's definitely not the main part to it.
okay.
So I mean, they're both young, like 17-year-olds who have not seen anyone their age in a while. So we have this variant, the Dialneus variant. I like with the photo strips of Lupe, just probably some stuff she did while she was traveling by herself. And then here's the 1 in 5 Monty's variant we're selling to our customers for $10.
Does anyone have hearts for eyes?
No,
Oh.
not yet. Not in issue 1 at least.
Okay, next up is could be my favorite book of the week and is quickly becoming one of my favorite books currently ongoing. This is World's Finest, Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 6. So this is kind of a one-shot standalone issue because in the next one we're going to be getting that Secret History of Superman had his own version of Robin at some
Right.
point. He had his own sidekick.
I can picture that cover right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think is going to be a big issue. And we're also getting ready for the Batman versus Robin storyline. So this is kind of a one shot in between, but don't let that stop you from getting this one because uh, it's so hard to describe this book and not make references to classic DC 70s, even before that, almost like 50s DC comics where there's some really goofy things, but this is told with updated storytelling and updated art. So, what is this one about? We know in the previous one that Robin got, as he was returning through time, he slipped out and he got flung into the time stream. And where did he end up? I thought this was going to be, a big, big story. It's not actually, it's kind of just a fun story because Robin ends up in 1892 in he finds himself in a circus. So it's not that he landed there, he made his way there. But he ends up in a circus and a perfect place for Dick Grayson. So we find him kind of integrated in the circus. He's clearly been there for a little while. He's performing on the trapeze. People love him. He's, one of the best acrobats they've ever had. And just kind of like a classic comic book story, there is a lion that all of the circus workers are accusing of killing somebody, and it's up to Dick Grayson using the technology of the time to prove this lion's innocence. So that's kind of it's not really any deeper than that. He's helping the lion tamer out who believes in this lion. So he's got to do like old timey forensics. He's like, even if I, check and the blood on its paws comes up as animal, how am I going to convince these people by saying, oh, I did like all this, futuristic technology to find out? They're not going to believe me. So how does Dick Grayson get around to doing that? Well, while he's performing on the trapeze, um, there is someone new that joins him. I feel like this is the best part of the story, but also the part I don't want to ruin because it is such a fun thing. Let's just say you get a lot of really good classic Batman and Robin team up where Batman is smiling and enjoying what he's doing, along with Superman, as they kind of try to integrate into a circus environment as well. So it's really fun. Uh, it wraps up the story just by the end of it. But Mark Waid does such a great job at doing this that you feel like you're reading an updated classic World's Finest issue. So can't recommend this one enough. This is World's Finest number 6. We've also got some cool variants for it. We've got the Terry and Rachel Dodson variant with Supergirl and Batgirl. And we have the Sandoval cover. This is the swimsuit variant. And we have this 1 in 25 hair scene variant that we're selling to our customers for $15.
All right, so I read Iron Cat issue number 3. So yes, there is a new suit. You can see it right on the cover, so it's not much of a surprise. Like when I looked at the cover, I was like, "Oh, Felicia's getting a new Iron Cat suit." That's really cool. But I have to say, when you read this, they act like it's supposed to be a surprise. I don't know if they knew this cover was going to be the main cover, but so yeah, a new Iron Cat suit, which I mean, I think everybody could have expected that.
Mm-hmm.
So the story thus far is an old sort of ex-friend but now nemesis of Felicia's has stolen the Iron Cat armor, the original armor, and she's trying to kill Felicia because Felicia killed their mentor. And so in this issue, it's very much a game of cat and mouse. Felicia pretty much admits that this girl has always been smarter than her, and so she has to try to outsmart someone who she knows is smarter than her. There is strategy to that. That is,
yeah.
I think that is doable when you're honest enough with yourself. So it's a lot of plans within plans against people's plans within plans, which I like. And it all takes place, of course, because it's Black Cat, at a party with alcohol and drinking and all that. So, and yes, there is another Iron Cat suit that goes on. But I'd say the other cool thing to this is the girl who she's going up against, Tamara, she has teamed up with a classic, well, not exactly classic, but an older Iron Man villain who is very powerful. And it might even be worse that this villain is getting involved than the whole Iron Cat debacle to begin with. So when you read this, by the end, you'll see that, what has been unleashed here, this Iron Man villain, pretty bad news. So that's what's going on in Iron Cat number 3, another very enjoyable issue by Jed MacKay, he's writing quite a few books at Marvel, a lot of which I'm going over today, and I enjoy them all. So here is the Lupacino variant. And then, I think is that the only one I have? That's the only one I have. I thought I had another, but I don't see it. Maybe I'll find it later.
Okay, so next up I have a double feature that is going to be A.X.E, Death to the Mutants, and X-Men number 13. So these kind of run pretty parallel to each other, even showing scenes from one another in the books. But first I'll start off with Death to the Mutants, or Death to Mutants. This is a kind of a companion book to the main Axe title, and it catches you up pretty quickly on what's been going on. It's not that complicated of an idea where, because the world found out that the X-Men can basically bring people back to life, the Eternals see that as a deviation, so they're going to stop them. Now, not all of the Eternals agree with this. So there's kind of these two factions of Eternals. Some are going to try to help the mutants, and led by Druig, some are going to try and destroy the mutants. So you've got people like Icarus and all of those who are on the side of helping them, but the big bad is Druig, who is declares in one page death to the mutants as he shakes his fist at the reader. So one thing I will say is don't expect in this issue for there to be too much mutants. This is more of a setup of why the Eternals are going to help the mutants, and why, kind of exploring more of Druig and the characters within the Eternals, what they're doing in this, and what their fears are about the mutants and all of that. There is no mutant. I think the only mutants you see are a few in a very small panel, very briefly. They don't say anything. So if you're like, I read all X-Men books, I'd say at this point, not quite an X-Men title. Definitely more of an Eternals title. Now, for the X-Men side of it, we have X-Men number 13, which does have a crossover scene from the other book. So I don't think you necessarily have to read one before the other one, but it does show a kind of a key scene with Icarus where he does something that's basically kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying that he's with the mutants. So that's the scene you see in there. But in X-Men, Icarus basically tells Jean Grey, I'll help you do this, but you can't kill any Eternals. If you do kill an Eternal, I'm not helping you anymore. We're enemies at that point. So, kind of sets up an interesting thing where the X-Men now have to break into an Eternals facility and basically cut off their power supply.
It sounds like a video game level.
It is. It's very much. They got to go down bottom of the ocean into this facility. Iceman shows a power I did not know he has in this, and I don't know if maybe I missed it at some point.
Omega level.
He grows into a giant and punches a Celestial.
I could see why.
I could see that, but there's many times I could also think that maybe he should have done that in another situation. Maybe to get out of something, he could have just grown. But you'll see a pretty cool fight between Iceman and the big celestial-like monsters that the Eternals have. But you've got characters like Magic. You've got a whole cool reconnaissance team that goes in there to try and mess up the flow of power to their enemy version of the Eternals. So it's cool. It's still part of the main X-Men series. It's not like X-Men number 1. This is X-Men number 13. So I think it does a good job not interrupting the story, but making it kind of just seamlessly slip on in. So you shouldn't be too lost with it. But that is what is currently going on in the 2 A.X.E tie-in books. I have no idea where the series is going to go. I have a feeling there's going to be some pretty serious consequences at the end of it. Probably for both sides. There's also, of course, some variants. So we have
all the variants.
Death to Mutants. This is the U variant. We have the X-Men variant with Iceman, the trading card variant.
There he is, yeah.
Just imagine he's a giant there. We've got this beautiful Art Adams cover with Jean on there. We have the Predator variant, X-Men versus Predators. And then we have the 1 in 10 Laraz design variant that we are selling to our customers for $10.
Okay, so I read Nightwing number 95, and first off, I'll say the cover, that's just hilarious. The thought of in Bloodhaven, they just have signs like, watch out, Nightwing swings through here regularly. This issue, even though it's issue 95, it felt a lot like an issue number 99. It's really eventful, and it ends off with stuff where it's like, I know they're going to do something big at issue 100. It almost feels like we're getting to it now. But that just makes me think that they're building something even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So last issue, Melinda Zuko was left in dire straits. So she, of course, is the new mayor of Bloodhaven for the last little bit of the series. And she's also the half-sister of Dick Grayson. And, if that's not enough, she's a double agent who pretends like she's working for Blockbuster, but really is not, is working against him. So, last issue, her true allegiances were discovered by some of Blockbuster's cronies, and she was left in a very bad spot. You get to see what happens with that in this issue. And with the Bloodhaven police compromised, Nightwing pulls together the most powerful team of his allies that I could imagine to take on Blockbuster and a bunch of gangsters. You know, there's Blockbuster, there's what's his name, Maroni, and all these people. Well, what happens when Nightwing calls upon all of his superpowered friends? Okay, like
And
we
he
get
has
to
a lot
see,
of them.
yeah, you know, I'll name drop one of them. Batman's even in this. Okay, to just help take on the crime lords. So it seems like these crime lords don't have a chance at all, and honestly, in a lot of ways, they don't. However, Blockbuster plays very, very dirty, and something he does kind of in the end give him the upper hand, at least over Nightwing, and you'll have to see what that is. So another good issue of Nightwing. I mean, that's why pretty much, you know, everybody reading it's just been continuing and continuing. There's just always another good issue of it. So we got two variants. Here is the Jamal Campbell variant. Trying to get it where it's the least amount of glare. And then here is the Nicola Scott swimsuit variant. Abs and abs for days and days and days. Actually, there is one more variant. There's the 1 in 25 Tulaski variant that we're selling to our customers for $20.
And next up for me, I have DC versus Vampires All Out War number 2 of 6. So this was the book that surprised me when the first issue came out, that it's actually kind of a black, white, and red book. And it's a kind of a companion book to the DC versus Vampire story. But in this one, we have Constantine, or if you watch Sandman, Constantine, whichever is the correct pronunciation, and Mary Marvel are now seeking sanctuary by going to Talia al Ghul in the League of Assassins, which I don't think knocking on their door and asking, hey, do you have a couple spare beds? I just don't see them easily saying yes. So that's a really fun story in there. Of course, a lot of vampire fighting action, a lot of red. But then there's a backup story in this that is following Dick Grayson. And what I think is interesting about this is sometimes when they do these Elseworld stories or whatever, they will go with a classic version of a character, you know, being like, well, this is, you know, this doesn't really reflect what's currently going on in the DC universe. This is, you know, this is whatever, probably 1990s version of Batman or whatever. This is actually so current that Bitewing is in it, which I think is a really interesting thing. So Nightwing, there's kind of a backup story with Nightwing, who we know is the Lord of the Vampires, and he, you know, sleeps in bed and he's got a little Bitewing and everything, and Melinda Zuko is in this in a very interesting way. And there's a character in this I need to show you to see if it's a first appearance, because I'm not sure, but someone close to Zuko that has an appearance in this, and I haven't been reading Nightwing, so I'm not quite sure. So that is a to be determined on that one. We also have some cool variants for this. We have the Ijikure swimsuit variant with, you know, a vampire probably, even if the beach looks fun, probably shouldn't go out in it.
I like that one. Yeah, well, Wonder Woman's so powerful, though.
I guess. I hope she has, like, Wolverine healing factor for all of those burns. We have the Lyrics cover with Mary Marvel. And we have the Stoko 1 in 25 variant that we are selling to our customers for $15.
All right, everyone. It is back. Shirtless Bear-Fighter 2, number 1, begins this Wednesday. So it's been 5 years since the first series. The first Shirtless Bear-Fighter miniseries was back in 2017. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny. But I mean, you have to want a comedy comic. You know, they're not trying to be deep here. This is set in a world that is so overly silly, and they're all very concerned with bears. Everything is bear centric in this world,
It's
and
probably a safe way to live, being
it,
constantly concerned about bears.
it really makes me laugh. So if you didn't read the first series, I think you're totally fine to actually jump in on this one because it does a little paragraph of here's what happened in the first series. All that sort of got wrapped up. You can pretty much jump into this one. So our main character, he of course doesn't like bears. In the first series, it was all bears were bad and evil, and I mean not just the furry ones, but like the Chicago Bears. Anything with the word bear in it is a villain, and he had to fight it. But now it turns out things are not that simple. Not all the bears are bad. That was sort of discovered last series. So he, as much as he wants to fight them, he can't fight all of them. So now he's working for the police under his girlfriend from the first series, and so he's fighting bears on an official capacity. And one of the main villains in this first issue is a bunch of giant evil gummy bears, which is really fun. You know, you have like a huge red one, and he's eating this guy, and the guy's like, "No, I hate red gummy bears." You know, and of course the bear eats him. The gummy bears are telling us how they're gonna eat our heads first. You know, the way that people do to gummy bears. You know, it's that sort of humor. I like it, and but then, of course, later in the book, he's done too much, so they go on a vacation. Where do they go? They go to Bermuda. So yeah, there's puns in this too. You know, that's going to happen in a book that's this in a world this focused on bears.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, it looks like things are going to get cosmic in this series, this miniseries, because it has a lot to do with Ursa Minor, which is the bear constellation. That comes up enough where it's like, oh, I see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening generally. Good comedy series if you want to laugh. If comedy and comics is not your thing, don't worry about it. You're not going to miss any heavy drama or anything that's going to make you think too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a fun book. So here is the Brunner variant. And here is the 1 in 10 Rivera variant that we're selling to our customers for $10 while supplies last, kind of making it look like old style romance book.
Okay, next up for me, we finally have issue 2 of Star Wars Mandalorian. Now it's funny, as I was making notes about this, I'm like, I could do these notes without actually even reading this, because this is, of course, based on episode 2 of Mandalorian, The Child. So, of course, in this one, Mando has Grogu, yet unnamed, in his possession, and he's about to deliver him back to his bounty. But that's when he discovers, when he gets attacked, that there are other people hunting as well that should have been called off, but it wasn't. So now people are hunting him. Most of this issue is silent because you've got, no one to talk to. But it's still really fun because this is the issue and episode where his ship, the Razor Crest, gets stripped of parts by the Jawas, and to get it back, he goes back to Quill, and Quill says, well, you've got to barter with him. He's like, why should I barter? They stole it from me. So he goes to them, and they say, well, you must get this egg for us. So this has the Mudhorn fight between Mando and the Mudhorn, Grogu's first use of the Force, where he lifts it up. It's a great episode. It's a great issue. Really fun stuff. So if you've watched the show, you know exactly what to expect, but it's great revisiting it and reading it this time around. And they are calling this the actual first appearance of Grogu in a comic, and the last issue as a cameo. So I'll be interested to see how that officially goes down in the future, but for right now, this is the official first in-comic appearance of Grogu. We've got some variants. So we have the, I believe this is the Kamenkoli variant. We've got the concept art variant. And we've got the 1 in 25 LaRocca variant that we are selling to our customers for $20.
All right. Also coming out this week, I read Strange number 5. So the cover says "Back from the Dead." What I have to say to that is the answer is no. Doctor Strange is not back from the dead in this. This doesn't happen. Doctor Strange does not come back alive or dead in this issue. It's a cool cover and all, but it doesn't happen. I love to talk about if covers are accurate or not. So in this instead, you have it's something I didn't expect at all. So Jed McKay's writing this. Another book he's writing is Moon Knight. Well, guess what? This is a Clea and Moon Knight crossover issue. It's not going to go into the Moon Knight series though. So Clea is looking to bring Doctor Strange back to life. So she goes to Moon Knight for advice because he's somebody that she knows has come back from the dead and been brought back a few times by Khonshu, and she wants to know how that works, how Khonshu's able to do that sort of thing. Well, Moon Knight tells her, "I'll tell you this stuff, but it's a working night for me, so you got to tag along." So they team up and they go do a bunch of Moon Knight stuff together, which is really awesome and interesting. So totally didn't expect it. Not on the cover. I don't know where the disconnect was between if they put Moon Knight on this cover, I guarantee we have more people picking it up too. But that's what it is. A lot of Moon Knight in this issue. Really cool. Plus, there is one other thing. The Harvestman, who has been a part of this series, he's pretty much like Death Sorcerer Supreme, who's been trying to keep Clea from bringing Doctor Strange back and a bunch of other things. The Harvestman's mask comes off and their identity is revealed in a shocking conclusion. So, crossover with Moon Knight, Harvestman's identity revealed. That's the sort of takeaway points. And oddly enough, this does not have a variant. Like, there is no variant to this at all, which also tells me some things must have changed with it.
Yeah. I think as the series goes on, it seems like they cut back further and further. They really up front push the variants, and then as it goes on. So.
I mean, it's a Marvel book, though. It should have some variant, whether it's open order or not. This has no variant to it. Yeah.
Well, next up for me, I have Dark Crisis Young Justice number 3. Are we on number 4? We're on number 4, and what's really cool about this issue is this, as we saw leading in with the last one, where Connor and Bart and Tim are facing off against Deathstroke, Lex Luthor, and Captain Boomerang. And why is that? Because those people have had the biggest kind of villain impact on their life. So, if you didn't know, Captain Boomerang actually killed Tim Drake's father way back in, pre-New 52, all of that. I forgot what book that was in, but they revisited a few times. You have Deathstroke, who, I forgot his exact connection with Bart, but he has a history there. And then you have Lex Luthor, who Connor has never gotten over the fact that he is part Lex Luthor and part Superman. So you get a really cool showdown of those characters as they also try to figure out, is this world, better than the one they came from? And a slew of surprise guest stars on the final page that really set up the next one to be a really cool issue. So that is issue number 4, and the variant by Corona.
All right, so I read the latest Black Adam number 3 from the new 12-issue maxi series. And in this one, the new successor of Black Adam, Malik, is trying to come up with... So if you read the previous issues, Black Adam died in a hospital where Malik was trying to save him. Malik tries to come up with trying to figure out what could have killed him. He's like, this dude is super powerful. Mm-hmm. He's basically immortal. What could have killed him? And with that knowledge, maybe there's something he could do to try to bring him back at some point. Beyond that, we get to see where Black Adam's spirit is. Where does he go after he dies? What I can tell you is It has to do with a new pantheon of gods, and he gets some visions of a possible future, which are pretty interesting. One thing I'll say about this is, in this issue, Malik and Black Adam are not in it together at all for the most part. Yet their lives seem very intertwined
Mm-hmm.
when you see some of the stuff that they show in the visions. So that's a lot of what's going on in Black Adam #3. Then we have this Sandoval variant. And we have this really awesome Raza variant.
Okay, next up for me is Star Wars issue 26. So I've been really looking forward to this. One, I love this cover. It's very almost like a novel or something, a poster. Very cool. Because we had, last issue was 25, which was a bunch of the short stories celebrating Charles Soule's run on Star Wars. But we knew after that, this is starting a whole new story arc. And let me say, this is a pretty cool issue. And a really fun one. So, uh, as Crimson Reign ended, Kira basically came out and said, everybody working for me, because she has disciples or whatever in the Empire and the Rebellion, everything, but she's definitely against the Empire, said, I want you to create as much chaos as possible. So that is what this issue is about. It begins on its Imperial Unity Day, which is this holiday that the Empire decided to start, even though nobody wants to celebrate it, as they march all of their new ships and terrible devices down city streets and expect people to clap and cheer for them. When the rebellion attacks, they have a great win in this moment. When they get back, everybody's celebrating. People want to see Luke's new lightsaber, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need to keep showing that thing off." They're like, "No, it's cool. We want to see it." So this is a really fun kind of innocent start to it. But then we get into some really cool stuff where Hera makes a cameo, which I think is a pretty big deal because I don't know if we've had any Hera in this time frame other than mentions of her, but she's part of the rebellion, so we do see her. But the other side of this issue is we're following a family that works for the Empire. They talk about they live in a secret base. I forget right off what their names are, but it's kind of a husband and wife, and they have some kids. They go about their daily work day, and they end up, they come back to their quarters, where we find out that they actually work for Crimson Dawn, and they know about this new thing that Kira has set up where they must make as much commotion and chaos within the Empire as possible. And it's them coming to terms with that. And okay, if we don't like what the Empire is doing, this is our chance to prove it and all of that. One thing I want to mention is if you look it up, we like to look before we do the show about has anyone already reported first appearances, not only to kind of confirm what we've seen, but also to tell you if that's not necessarily true, because sometimes the information is wrong. Uh, this Some reports claim that these two characters, or I think it's the husband, is the nephew of Kira.
Yeah, it's supposed to be nephew and niece of Kira.
Yes, which I I don't think it's both of them, but also the way that he refers to her as uh, Auntie Q or Auntie Kira, to me it strikes me more of a term, kind of a without saying like mother or whatever, but that she's someone that they follow rather than a true familial
Right.
relation. When you read it, you'll see what I mean. It's even in kind of in bold, where I don't necessarily think that that's the case, that they are blood related to her. I think it's more of a term that they call her, because they're kind of like it's an unorganized, or it's not like a official group, so they refer to her less of a leader and more of like a familial term.
I see.
So that's my rambling about that, but that's the feelings I got from it. But this sounds like it's going to be a really cool story arc going forward for Star Wars. In issue 26, we also have some variants. So we've got the Sprouse Choose Your Destiny variant with Plo Koon. And we have this John Tyler Christopher action figure variant with Episode 1 Obi-Wan.
Babyface Ewan McGregor.
Yep. So adorable.
Okay, so I read this one shot, The Last Shadowhawk. So, you know, I read Jim Valentino's stuff on Guardians of the Galaxy when I was a kid. That's the first comic I ever bought, was a Jim Valentino Guardians of the Galaxy. First one at a comic shop. And so when he went over to Image, even though I was very young, I followed his work over there. I bought the first Shadowhawk. And so it's kind of a sad day that I read this, which is called The Last Shadowhawk. And I think it's kind of an appropriate title. So I got to tell you guys about this. It is a one-shot, and it is kind of sad. So Valentino sort of served as executive producer on this comic. He is in the credits, but I think he's noted, and I'm sure he wrote this himself, I think he put like old and in the way.
Yeah.
Is what he put as himself. This is actually, the story and pencils are done by Philip Tan. Now, Valentino also helped with 3 of the covers for this as well. So he definitely was a part of this. This tells what could be the last Shadowhawk story, or maybe it's the last Shadowhawk in the sense of, here's the last one that we had, and here's what happens with him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel this might really be the last Shadowhawk story, which is really sad. So Shadowhawk has often been a very brutal hero. His whole thing, and I remember when I heard it pitched when I was a kid buying it, was he went after really bad criminals. Okay, it wasn't just every criminal he did this to, but the really bad ones, he would break their back so that they could not commit the crimes again. He wouldn't kill them, but he'd break their back. Well, in this issue, the son of one of these criminals he did this to has grown up. He has been training to avenge his father's death, and he goes after him. And most of the comic is just a big fight between this guy who is dead set on killing Shadowhawk and Shadowhawk, who has gotten kind of old. As you know, we've all grown up.
Yeah.
As happens to all of us one day. And so the Egyptian gods are in this. They're the ones that imbue Shadowhawk with the power. And they can heal Shadowhawk. They can bring Shadowhawk back to life. The question is, after all this time, and with this villain kind of talking to Shadowhawk about how messed up it is what he did to criminals, and how maybe what he was doing by breaking their backs were worse than killing them, does he really want to go on? Does he want to be healed? You'll just have to read to see how it pans out. But if you've been reading Shadowhawk stuff from the beginning, it's not like I've read everything, but you know, it's just I've read the early stuff and all. It's kind of a sad issue to read. Really, really interesting though, and very important with the whole mythos of Image.
It, kind of from what you showed me, it feels almost like Valentino was like, I don't want this just to go, like, Shadowhawk to just fizzle out. I want to, you know, while I'm here, while I'm, you know, working on this, I want to give it the ending I want to give it, or, you know, a cap on the end of it.
Yeah, I think, you know, Shadowhawk was always criticized for the whole, like, how is he a hero if he's breaking backs? And I think finally Valentino's decided, along with, you know, writer Philip Tan, let's address that once and for all, if that's okay or not from us after all this other experience we've had in comics and thinking about heroes. And so interesting book, not what I expected, but not necessarily in a bad way, but still kind of sad. So here are the variants. So the first 3 variants are all Valentino variants with other people. This is sort of the Valentino Liefeld variant. Then the Valentino in the style of McFarlane, of course, variant. Then we have another Valentino Liefeld one. That's very, you know, classic Shadowhawk. Then we have a Sienkiewicz variant. We have a covers variant, showing all the covers to the various Shadowhawk comics. We have a black variant and a white variant. And then there's a 1 in 10 Philip Tan sketch variant that we're selling to our customers for $10. And then lastly, there is this Philip Tan Virgin variant. This is a 1 in 20 we are selling for $15.
It makes me sad that if that really is the last Shadowhawk, it's like I don't want all of the books to have, you know, the last Savage Dragon, the last Spawn, the last whatever, even though we may have seen the last Youngblood.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up I have, let me make sure I grab the right one. Just show off briefly, this is Catwoman number 46. You know, it's a really fun issue where the beginning of it, I think, in particular, with kind of a flashback with Batman and Catwoman, where this is the point where they have a relationship, but Batman's still not too happy that she's a burglar, and so he kind of talks to her about, well, do you feel shame for being a burglar? And she tells Batman exactly how she feels about him thinking that. Really cool. But a really strong part of this issue is these covers. So we have the Deckle swimsuit variant, which I think is one of the coolest. And we have this Suzumaka variant.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah. And we have this really nice 1 in 25 Lotte variant that we are selling to our customers for $35.
Okay, so I read, let's see what's the next one I'm doing. Captain Marvel number 40. So the first thing I'll say about this also has a cover that I think was mismatched incorrectly in some way, because Binary is not in this at all.
Oh, wow.
At all. Binary is not in this, really.
Well, the last one was almost all her, I think.
Correct. So, you know, where has Carol Danvers been? Carol Danvers has been put on trial by a magical tribunal of some of the most powerful magic-using characters in the Marvel Universe. And why are they doing this? Because one of them has accused her of being against magic. They say that she is not just bad with magic, but she just kills magic. She's just terrible to anything magical. So the test they put her on is, it's sort of like a simulation where over and over again, she thinks she's saving this village from a dragon, and she has to try to find a way to do it. Well, will she be able to find a non-violent way to do that? That is sort of the test. And also, with the tribunal, who is more on her side, who is against her, you'll learn all that if you read this issue. But just don't expect to see Binary, who is on the cover. She's back on Earth doing her own thing that we'll see next issue. So here is the Nord Predator variant for that same issue. Which, good luck beating Captain Marvel Predator.
I just love that I saw an article this week that said Hulu and Marvel just resurrected Predator and made it like a formidable franchise property again in 1 week. In 1 week, they pulled that off.
Yeah.
So, next up for me, I have, this is Hulk number 8. So, this is our final installment of Banner War. And they said going into it, there will be a definitive winner of this fight. I mean, you can guess that might be a little hyperbole considering both of their books continue after this point. One is not beaten out of existence, but this is a very interesting issue because we have Thor, who has been gamma-ized, however you would say. Irradiated, yep, with the gamma irradiation, and he's almost more Hulk-like than Hulk. He's definitely can't control his anger. But on the other side, we have Hulk, who Odin, who is inside the hammer, has allowed Hulk to be able to pick it up. So you kind of have the roles reversed, where now Hulk is in the Thor role and Thor is in the Hulk role. And most of this issue is an all-out fight where even the fabric of reality is at stake. Because what does Thor try and hit Hulk with? He rips up the world tree out of its roots to try and smash Hulk. So that's what contains the 9 realms. So all of existence on that is at stake, as well as they've destroyed the Bifrost, so there's no way to bring in backup. There's just a lot going on in this all-out fight, and I would say there's kind of a winner. There's kind of someone who's declared a winner. I would say it's not a fight to the death, but someone walks away, and you can pretty much guess who was the winner in this. But it does seem to have some big ramifications on both sides, but bigger ones than I would imagine for the main Marvel Universe on Earth and everything. I'll be interested to see if we see some references to what happened there, considering what happens at the end of this. So we know that Hulk is going back into space. That's in the upcoming issues and everything. But I'll be also really interested to see what happens with Thor, because some big stuff happened with the hammer and him and all of that, rounding off this big event. It says Hulk number 8, part 5 of 5 of Banner of War. And we have the Daughterman Hellfire Gala variant with She-Hulk. And we have the Connecting variant. And we have this 1 in 25 Clark variant that we're selling to our customers for $20.
Okay, I read Harley Quinn issue number 20. This is the third part of the Task Force XX storyline, which is a weekly storyline where Harley and a team are put together by Luke Fox. It's far enough in, I can drop some things now. Harley is put together with a team by Luke Fox to go into space, to go to the moon, to the Justice League's base on the moon, where they have put Element X, which has gotten out of control. And while everything in Dark Crisis is happening, there aren't enough people around. He can't just contact the Justice League. They aren't around. So he sends them up. Last issue, we had one of the members died, and another one got taken over by the Element X. So in this issue, you get to see the ramifications of this. On top of that, Harley's team consists of people that don't necessarily get along. Surely Luke Fox considered the fact that, they might all end up in a brawl. Well, that happens in this issue. A large part of this issue is the team, all their problems with each other come to a head, and they get into a brawl. Lastly, you get to see the actual danger Element X possesses, and yes, it is intelligent. Most good villains are. And you get to see how this is actually going to possibly be a danger for the Earth, and maybe even Luke Fox, even though he isn't even in space with them. You'll have to see how all that works in the third part of this weekly series. Here are the variants. We have the Derek Chew variant, Harley and her football clown goons. And then here is the Sook homage variant. This whole series has just been great. I've really liked all these.
He really nails all the art styles.
Yep.
Okay, next up for me is one that I did not know that this is Daredevil number 2, but it's also Legacy number 650. So it hit a interval of 25.
Yep, another milestone issue.
So we've got to make it a big sized issue. Let's see, this is a $5.99 issue for a pretty substantial size book. It's pretty heavy. And I did not get to read this as closely as I wanted, But what I can tell you is this has a bunch of guest artists in it. You have people like John Romita Jr., Klaus Janson, um, a lot. Chris Samney, I believe, does a few pages in it, all exploring, their kind of history with the characters and uh, their time frames that they did a lot of. I think Romita Jr. does a Typhoid Mary story and all of that. So really cool. It's got your main story, but then some backup stories, even a one-page really fun comic strip for Daredevil number 2. We also have some variants for it. We have the Skrull variant. That Skrull really didn't put in a lot of effort because it just put on a costume, and it's like you've got one part you got to change. And we have the Sienkiewicz Predator variant. And we have this 1 in 25 Gary Frank variant. Really cool. We're selling to our customers for $25.
Okay, so I read the second issue of Scott Snyder's Dark Spaces Wildfire. The first thing I'll say, some of you might have heard, this has been optioned for TV, which I'm not surprised. Scott Snyder, a lot of his projects are sort of going that way, like Nocterra is another one that happened with. So this follows a firefighter team who decide, because they happen to have some information, one of them has, that there is a mansion in the middle of this wildfire where the wildfire has not gotten to it yet that has some very valuable things in there, and they decide that they're going to rob it. They're going to work their way there, try to rob it before the fire gets there, and make their fortune. So in this issue, the plan begins. They make it to the house. They begin the process of the robbery. Things are going well. They're even sort of partying down about it. But then a terrible and grim discovery is made that is going to complicate everything. So that's what's going on in Dark Spaces Wildfire number 2. We have a few variants for this. We have the Levette variant. We have the Beam variant. And lastly, we have the Sorrentino variant.
I was interested in what was going to be a twist in that book. Because, yeah, I mean, it's a twist enough that people are robbing a house during a forest fire. But, are they just going to go in, grab everything, and run out? It's interesting to hear that there's something else, something going on in there. That kind of element.
Can't be that easy.
Yeah, it can't be that easy. There's got to be a hiccup in there. Okay, finally for me, we have, let me make sure I grab the A cover. We have Fortnite X Marvel Zero War number 3. I did not read this one either because it's polybagged and I don't want to open any of our polybags that are going to customers. So we have our A cover for that. We have our Momoko variant. I think that one's really good. We have, I believe this is the, I believe this is the Pacheco variant. We have the, of course, we have the Ron Lim variant. We have this 1 in 50 really nice Derek Chu variant. I feel like that was just a good piece of art they had because there's not a whole lot of Fortnite going on there, but it's a really nice Rogue and Gambit cover.
Yeah, that feels like a Mr. and Mrs. X cover that didn't get used.
We're selling this to our customers for $45. And we have this 1 in 25 Frank Cho variant that we're selling for $10.
And of course, like all the Marvel Fortnite issues, it comes with the code to get you something special in the Fortnite game, which is what a large number of people come in and get these for. Okay, so the last one I need to go over is Issue number 2 of Madballs versus Garbage Pail Kids.
Finally, save the best for last.
Best for last.
I heard some of the jokes that you're rattling off from this thing, and they are top tier.
Okay, so in this issue, the new neighbors who happen to have a house between two other houses, one of which is a Garbage Pail Kid's house, the other is a Madballs house, they get disturbed. They're hearing some loud music. It turns out the Madballs have a garage band. How they play their instruments, you'll just have to see. Well, the Garbage Pail Kids come over and they go, "That's not music. We have our garage band." And so they play their terrible and gross and pun-filled songs, and that is sort of the crux of the main story. But this, like the first issue, has a lot of sub-stories. It has, a crossword puzzle. It has a part where you can make your own Madball. If you like the first one, it's more of that. So that's what's generally going on in Madballs versus Garbage Pail Kids number 2. And here we have the Crosby. I think he does all the covers. This is the Crosby card variant. And then here is the other Crosby variant. It's I guess the non-card variant. And lastly, there's a 1 in 10 of that, but it is the black and white variant that we're selling for $10. Whew, well, that is it. That is our show for today. Yes. I think we went through about 25 comics and all their variants and incentives. So I hope we've done our job and we've explained these to you. So when you go in your store, you are not overwhelmed. You are armed with the knowledge of what you want to buy and why. So thank you very much for watching. Our co-host on Comics from the Future, Megan, she'll be doing her Whatnot show tonight at 7 o'clock. And what that is, it's something old, something new. She'll be selling some of these new comics and incentives, along with, she intersperses with it like Silver Age and Bronze Age comics and keys. So it's a really fun show. She does very well on that. So that'll be at 7 o'clock on Whatnot. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do such. We'll be back on Friday with Comics for the Future. So thank you very much. Have a great week. We hope you pick up some awesome comics.